Hey muscle car lovers, Ron here. Welcome to Ron's Muscle Car Garage. We're going to be taking a trip down to my shop. We're going to take a look at the 67 Camaro and we're going to fire it up because it's been about a month, and if you watched my last video, that's what I do. I fire my engines up once a month throughout the winter months so that they cycle fuel through the system, okay? I run E85 if you are unaware of that, and that's one of the things I do. I'll explain that when I get down there and we're looking at the car. But one other thing I wanted to point out, you do see that I'm starting out the video here in my pool room. I'm retired now, and what I've decided to do is take my pool game to another level. So I started a YouTube channel a while back, by accident actually. I just had a lot of people that started subscribing, and I'm up to almost 5,000 subscribers now, just knocking on the door. Won't be too much longer, maybe another month. And I just wanted to share that with you. If you are a pool player, come on over to my channel and subscribe and check out what I do here. I'm going to include a link, by the way, to that channel within the description of this video, so you guys can go into that and take a look. If you're trying to improve your pool game, realize that I have a lot of video that is very, very helpful, and I've come a long, long way, and if you watch, you'll see what I'm talking about. Not to brag, but I put in a lot of hours. I actually shoot, on average, 6 hours a day. I do 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the evening. It's kind of split up the 2 practice sessions, and it's really helped my game. I call it practicing with purpose. So now, without further ado, let's head on down to my shop and take a look at the 67 Camaro if you've not seen it yet, and let's fire that baby up. Okay, I just opened up the door to the shop here. I like to keep my Camaro, the 67, is all set, ready to go to the track, but I actually leave it on the lift so I'm not resting on the wheel bearings. In the past, you know, I've been doing this since 1977. I've actually had a wheel bearing that actually got a flat spot in it, and the car sat for a couple of years back then. It was like back in the early 80s, and I attribute that to that fact that it sat so long in one spot. So if you don't have a lift, here's another bit of advice. Just move your car once in a while. Just push it ahead a little bit or back, just to get it off that one spot of that bearing. I might be just a little bit too anal about this, but I kind of think that that's what happened in that case. So what I do now is I keep the car up on the lift, like I just said. So, and what I've done here is, because the car has been sitting for a little while, I leave the battery hooked up and everything. I don't have any leaks as far as you know, electrical, and so the battery stays fairly charged. But in firing it up once in a while, you do take some charge out of the battery. So I'll throw a trickle charger on it the night before and get it up into the green, so when I go to start it, because this is high compression, this is 14.8 to 1, so it's pretty strong compression. It's by the way, it's an Optima battery, a gel battery. It works really good, but I want to keep it up, you know, above 12 volts during cranking, so that helps a lot to do that as well. It makes the car start a lot quicker. Plus, it's also the juice you need for your electrical system, right? For your MSD. Make sure that you get good spark and all that. So let's go ahead and fire it up. I'm going to actually lower it down, and so I can get in it. And then I'm just going to run it for a little heat cycle and shut it back off, and we're good to go for another month. Okay, we've got her all fired up. It's good for another month. Nice to get that out of the way. Just to let you know, about a week and a half ago, we had 20 inches of snow. Some of you, may have seen on the news where Buffalo, New York had, I believe it was 5 feet. I can't imagine, 60 inches is just amazing. But in that same snowstorm, where I'm at here in Michigan, we're very close, about a half hour away from Lake Michigan. We also get lake effect just like Buffalo did, Buffalo, New York. And we got dumped on 20 inches. That was our very first snowfall, by the way, of the year, which I've never seen that happen, where we had that much snow on the very first snowfall that covered the ground. So just to let you know, let me show you here. Take a look outside. It's a beautiful day, nice and sunny, and all the snow is gone. 50-degree weather and rain, man, that's what takes away the snow fast. So I'm kind of happy about it. It'd be nice to have a little snow for Christmas, though, for the grandkids and everything, so they can go sledding and stuff. But yeah, we're good to go up here right now. It's super nice. Probably about 45 degrees today, so it's warm for this time of year, but it's still a little chilly. But at least it's not snowing. But yeah, that's what I do. I told you about this in the last video. One of the things I want to say too is I run a vacuum pump in this engine. And the reason I run that is because I run a total seal ring pack, and I run a gapless top ring. I used to, emphasize that, run a low tension ring. And then this build, I was swayed away from that by Total Seal. They said just run a standard, I think it's 13-pound oil ring. So he said, the rep told me, he says, you won't have any loss in horsepower. It's going to be better for you. And you still can run your vacuum pump, and you should run your vacuum pump. That actually builds horsepower as well, because we're creating a negative and not a positive pressure inside the crankcase, so to speak. But anyway, that's what I want to talk about, is when I fire these engines once a month, and when they're cold, although it's not that cold because I keep my shop here at 55 degrees when I'm not working in it. But when the engine is fairly cold, it takes a little bit for that vacuum to build up. And what I try to look for is 5 inches of vacuum at idle when the engine's warm. When I first fire, if I rev it a little bit, it gets there, but it's really about 2. And once I get a little bit of heat in the engine, it goes to 5. And that's a little unique than what it was last build, because last build it actually did go right to 5. So it's a little bit slow getting there this time. Not sure what that is, so if you guys watching this have a comment, you can let me know what you think about that. There's nothing wrong with the engine. I've run this car a lot on the street already. Did a lot of tests on it, looking at the oil, all of the things that you would check for. One thing I have to do, though, is I'm going to have to check the valve lash since it's been on the street. It was all good from the dyno and everything, and then been driven on the street. So now it's time to make sure that I have no issues with my lifters, because that can be a problem. Although I run a bushing style crawler lifter, and that's a better lifter and it lasts longer. But getting back to the vacuum, once I get a little heat in the engine, boom, it's 5 inches. As you rev your engine, the vacuum goes up, and accordingly to the RPM. And so that's all good. It's been working fine. An interesting thing that I learned when I first started running a vacuum pump, this has been several years ago now, is I remember one time I had a breather cap on my catch can that had a stem. It was like a breather cap for a valve cover. But if I would block that airflow, or that suction airflow, it would stop the vacuum pump from sucking in the engine. And I did that one time. I just held my thumb over it, and all of a sudden I saw smoke coming off my headers, a little bit of smoke. And I was like, what's going on with this? And I went over and looked, and I could see oil drip underneath the valve cover along the bottom rail right by one of the screws. And by that time I had walked away from the vacuum pump, and it was working again, and I had no leak. So I then reached over and I blocked off the vacuum pump again, and sure enough it started leaking. So interesting that a vacuum pump can draw enough suction to stop an engine from leaking, but it actually can. So those of you who are not aware of that, I know some of you guys that are racers and stuff are probably laughing, but you know that. but some people don't, and it's pretty interesting. But now, one more thing I want to say too, that might help you out. When I first fired this engine, you notice I didn't rev the heck out of it. You don't want to do that because this is a solid lift motor, so I have a lot of, there's 22 thousandths of valve lash, and I don't want to hammer that lifter. You know, there's gap there, right? And especially when it's colder, the gap is larger, so you don't want to just, you know, nail that engine. So you want to let it build some heat, and then eventually you can start to rev it a little bit. Even then, I don't rev it a lot. I'm just bringing up to, you know, a little bit of RPM, that's about it. The thing too is I want to make sure that I'm not hammering the lifters, and I mentioned this in the last video. I want to keep the RPM a little bit above 1300, ideally 1500 RPM, so it's not, once again, hammering the lifters. So I'll actually bring the pedal down just a little bit, just to make sure that it's not low idle during it's cold, while it's cold, and it's back up around 1500. I'll hold it there for a little while until it gets some heat built into it, and then once it's got heat in it, then it idles high anyway there where it needs to be, and that's where I've got it set. So always when you have a cold engine, especially E85, it may have a tendency to, you know, be a little bit less RPM than what you're used to seeing when it's warmed up. So that's a very important thing. You just don't want those lifters to be bouncing off those cam lobes, okay? So I just want to point that out. All right, that concludes the video for today. Once again, if you're a pool player and you want to look at my other channel, please subscribe. Go ahead and check it out. It's in the description of this video, and you can just hit that subscribe button. That'd really be a helpful thing for me. If you like this video, hit a thumbs up. Also, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe here as well. And you're going to see more video coming down the road. I've been a little bit, I've neglected a little bit of this channel because of the other channel, because I've just been so busy. But I will be getting on a 69 car that I've got. You can see some of that car in my other videos on this channel. And we're going to be firing that engine, and that one made 710 horse, almost 710, 709.7 on the dyno, and that is a street engine, also E85, and I'm going to be firing that one up, and you're going to hear what that one sounds like. This little monster, though, is bad to the bone, isn't it? I love the sound of this, and I actually like the smell of E85. Some guys don't, but I do, and it's so cheap too, man. Way cheaper than race gas. I would have had to run 112. I don't even know what 112 runs now. It's got to be $10 a gallon, okay? Where this stuff is right around, I think it's, if I get it over at the plant, it's like in the $2 range. It was actually in the dollar range prior to this last election, but it's jumped up with just like all the other fuels have as well. But still way cheaper than 112. All right, thanks for watching. If you want to leave some comments, leave them, and I'll answer everyone. Thanks for watching. Till next time, like I always say, keep working on them because they're never done.